As I started out this week, I was really curious as to how many critics of professional wrestling would perceive the Team Taz versus Sting and Darby Allin cinematic match that took place at AEW Revolution. I was hoping that kayfabe would win, because for a really long time there are critical minds who feel like they got to put on blast the state of wrestling, most notably because they feel like people have destroyed and killed kayfabe. And this beloved kayfabe came to light in a way that just fucking fans of Sting have been waiting for such a long time. Because Sting in WCW was this menacing figure for vengeance there, like literally handpicked from the Crow comic book and dropped into the middle of the NWO situation, which for those of you who weren't there watching to experience this, the NWO had come into WCW and flipped the script and seemingly taken over the entire show. And the only light and hope that us as fans had was Hulk Hogan, who then turned on us, joined the NWO, and hope was lost. I mean, these guys were taking out everybody. And then Sting shows up as the Crow version of Sting from the Surfer Sting. And in this darkness, there was a light of hope. When things were going bad, you would see him up in the rafters and they would clear the ring. They'd be like, oh God, it scared the NWO, the big bad guys, the villains that took over everything. Now, even in my mind as a child, I knew that Surfer Sting was not Eric Draven. He was not the Crow. He was not a superhero. He was a professional wrestler with a baseball bat. I got it. I understood. But the story, that kayfabe that is so precious, had me hooked in so much that guess what? He barely even worked. He barely was even in the ring. He just showed up. He just stood there. He just looked at the camera sometimes. And that was it. That was all. Was that not the power of kayfabe? He was so powerful without doing anything at all. Now, I understand, that's more of a metamorphosis than a lot of people were ready for, but the youth who knew no better was super into it. We loved it. Sting became this icon, but we never really got that badass Sting that we were looking for, that badass payoff that we were looking for. And then you look through the history of Sting and it just goes on and on and on into some crazy shit in TNA. Finally, the guy from WCW that never crossed over did. And what do they do to this character? This mythological figure. The light in the darkness. He shows up to look like Bozo the Clown in an open arena, in the heat, in the sweat, with a bunch of other people who, are not at their peak. Why? What the fuck was that, right? And so now in AEW, we have Sting taking a younger guy under his wing, right? Kayfabe. I hear people talking about Darby Allin looks like he weighs 110 pounds. Darby Allin does this. Yeah, right. Ha ha ha. Darby Allin. What happened to this kayfabe? Again, WCW, Rey Mysterio Jr. blew my mind with what this little guy, undersized guy could do. He was making me invest in what he was doing because he was so talented. He looked cool as shit. Him and Ultimo Dragon had some of the coolest gear back in the day, in my opinion, and I was just bought into that because it was entertaining, because they made me believe that this little guy could really go out there and do some wild shit and contend with bigger dudes. That right? Isn't that kayfabe? Isn't that what it is? We're all suspending disbelief. We think that this is legit. Why then do the same people who bitch and moan and complain and say that it killed the business when kayfabe is coming to life, they're the ones that kill it. They're the ones that mock it and laugh at it as if they didn't do ridiculous comedy wrestling spots back in the 70s and 80s that nobody really fucking believes. You watch it now and you're like, this is unbelievable. There's no fucking way I would believe that's real. But then we come to 2021 AEW Revolution and we get Sting. Okay, the way they set this up and protected Sting and made him a threat. They gave him angles and moments and threw together this cinematic match that covered for the abilities of the man who is, you know, not in his prime and can only do so much, that if you just set up a regular ass match and said, you know, go work for 20 minutes or so, it would not be what we got, which was a representation of this character, of this mythical, legendary force of vengeance known as Sting, doing work, showing up at the nick of time, being the hero that he was built up in the kayfabe to be. And what happens from the people who go around crying about the death of kayfabe? We get a spark and a piece of it, and they want to kill it. There's my investment. Sting from my childhood, risen from the grave that WWE tried to put him in, placed in a condition that is going to allow that story to thrive and live once again. And it's mocked and ridiculed by the same people who say that disbelief, that buy-in, that emotional investment is the bread and butter and most important thing in professional wrestling. When it sparks up somewhere, they're the first ones to snuff it out. And I feel like that's just a shame. But fortunately, the sun is coming over the horizon. That stuff is going to be a thing of the past. The only people who are going to chuckle and laugh along and buy into that will be on life support and on oxygen tanks. And, you know, we can buy back into that. We can build that kind of disbelief and fun and enjoyment in something that we all love without the critical used to beens, people who want to snuff out that spark every chance they get because it's not exactly their way. You know, that will eventually fade into the background and be over with. And things like this will be seen as a revolutionary mark. And, you know, like the cinematic matches WWE has done and things like, when you get to a certain point with individuals who represent these characters and who get out there and entertain, when you get to a certain point, the only way that you can give that character to the fans who still want to invest in it is in a situation like this. You know, Matt Hardy, when they were doing the Broken Hardy compound matches and stuff like that, ridiculed to death. And look what's happened now. People will still make progress. People will expand upon their art and do what they want to express themselves, regardless of the critics and the cynics and the people that hate. You know, whatever. If that's your gimmick, yeah, just enjoy it. Be bitter. I hope you have fun with that. But for those of us who want to invest and relive, you know, these situations and make new memories and suspend that disbelief, invest in the kayfabe and enjoy professional wrestling, we're going to, and it's obviously working in the face of all the hate. So I just want to say that I'm glad to finally see Sting represented the way that he was at AEW Revolution. I think Darby Allin's great. Ricky Starks, Brian Cage, the whole situation was great. The way that they panned over from like one little spot over to the next, separating the match and bringing it to the eyes of the audience. It was just super smooth, well done, fun, Great story. I enjoyed it so much. But I think that's going to do it for me on this. This was just my reaction, my thoughts to the cinematic match from AEW Revolution. And I hope you guys had fun watching that show as well. If you didn't, if you disagree with anything I had to say, drop something down in the comment section. Let me know. Let me know if there's something else you want to hear me talk about, react to. I'm glad to have your recommendations. And if you like the video, you could subscribe, you could like the video, get the notification bell ringing, and until next time, I will see you later.